wanting to remain undisturbed. And it once rolled on, and eventually it was almost the end of the year, and there was a sort of complacency about things, and suddenly people were given a rude shaking in the form of an earthquake.
Ooh.
The first major earthquake in an area which was supposed to be seismically dead, the Deccan Plateau. It was supposed to be seismically the most stable configuration in the Indian continent. So for the first time, in I think December 8th or 6th, probably the first week of December, I'm not sure about the date, that we had this major earthquake which originated near the Koyna Dam. You see, actually there is a theory that it was this giant dam which was built on a fault which could have triggered this earthquake. And there are other scientists who say that it's absurd that a little collection of water like that could move such a huge chunk of land mass. It's a tiny drop, as it were. The big lake that was impounded by the Koyna Dam, in comparison to the size of the Deccan Plateau, it's a microscopic thing. But well, some people say that was the result. That was the cause of the earthquake. And the epicenter was Koyna. So it points out the fact that it could be that.
It's like this other earthquake that occurred a year ago in the same vicinity.
That's right, yeah. It was very close to Koyna, in Karad, I think. So ever since then we have been having these earthquakes in Deccan Plateau. So we don't know. Yeah, but that was early one morning, and I remember I was lying down and I was fast asleep, and suddenly my bed began to shake violently. And I at first thought that some thief had got under the bed and was trying to shake me out or something. I had a peculiar feeling. And then there was a deep rumbling sound, deep down below, as it were. A very frightening sort of rumbling sound. And then I realized that it was an earthquake. And after it was very violent, a few seconds of extremely violent shaking. It was all shaking and there was rattling everywhere. And then people started to rush out and start crying out earthquake. And we heard that Meherazad also shook. The whole Meherazad was shaking. And Gave tells us that she rushed into Baba's bedroom. Baba was lying down on his bed, and she bent over him, thinking that the roof might collapse. So at least she could protect Baba from getting directly hit or something. Yeah, a sort of instant reflex on her part. Yeah, because she was in charge of Baba's body. You know?
Right.
Yeah, so she was the physician royal. Attending to Baba, and so she was very concerned. Yeah, and it was a very terrible earthquake. It wiped out the village near the Koyna Dam. There was no trace left. Many hundreds must have died. We don't know exactly what the extent of the human casualty, because usually it's all hushed up, you know. But there was a lot of damage. Fortunately, the dam survived the quake, because otherwise it would have been a monumental tragedy. because it could have just wiped out cities and villages downstream, The huge mass of water was collected there. And I think they filled up the water too soon. It was a repeat of the Panshed Dam tragedy, which occurred earlier. And so, anyway, a lot of damage occurred.
But even though they filled it up too soon, but it didn't result in a breaking of the dam or anything like that?
No, fortunately the dam survived. I think they had foreseen some seismic activity because they were warned that there is a fault where they were building the dam. There was a crack below and it could result in an earthquake later, and that's what happened actually. But the dam survived that. So that was fortunate. And then the year I think ended.
Did that elicit any comment from Baba, the earthquake episode that you recall?
No, I don't know. But only I heard from Ghaver that there was quite a good deal of panic here. Yeah. And her first reaction was to rush to Baba's room and protect him. I wonder if she remembers that or not.
So in this last decade of the 1960s, there was flood and earthquake.
Yeah, that's right. And drought. Major droughts, I tell you. Yeah. So, well, it's all His divine plan of awakening people. And I think before I came to Meherazad, and there was another remarkable incident concerning Dr. Briesman, which I gathered from one of the letters which Erich had written me. And Dr. Briesman was the one who had replaced Dr. Pedersen at the Booth Hospital.
Right.
And when Baba passed away also, I think it was he who had lent the ambulance, and I think he had come also for certifying Baba's passing away and all that, if I'm not too sure. So Dr. Briesman, it seems, had gone for a picnic to Happy Valley, and he was there with his family, and while they were just relaxing, suddenly they were attacked by these huge hornets nearby. Some village urchins might have disturbed their nest or something by throwing a stone, and these people became the target of their attack. So they were severely stung by these huge hornets or gnats or whatever you call them.
Hornets.
Wasps, yeah. And the poor family got panicky. They rushed to their car, and somehow they drove past Meherazad, and Dr. Briesman was very severely stung, So he knew you couldn't make it all the way to the hospital, so he came rushing into Meherazad one evening, and he just collapsed here because of he was totally stung over from head to foot, and these big stings all sticking out of him, and he was all swollen up. His wife, his child, they were all very badly mauled up. So Baba's, of course, had retired, but then there was a big commotion here, and the Mandli rushed to help. They were given first aid, and Kavir came, and all the Mandli, and with all these, there was no electricity at that time, of course. So with hurricane lanterns, they started to pick out these stings from the from the sides of where they were stung. The bees just leave the sting inside, and that causes a lot of irritation. So hundreds of these stings had to be pulled out mechanically by hand, and that gave them relief. Yeah. So it was a major incident at Meherazad. And Baba.
So he could have died from this.
Oh yes. But fortunately, he could get help here, and they were saved. His little boy also was stung badly. Yeah, so that was the end of this eventful 1967. And then, yeah. I think it's all right.
Okay.
Yeah. So now we come on to the final year, 1968, and you could hear me? Yeah. So time for me to come to Meherazad, and little knowing that it would be my last stay at Meherazad in Baba's physical proximity, because in 1969 I didn't have any further chance to be with Baba. So this was my last stay at Meherazad. And of course the seclusion was continuing, and what happened was, before I came, another incident that took place was, and probably listening to the day's correspondence or whatever, and this door used to be kept ajar a bit, and from that tiny little slit, a little tiny puppy slinked in, and a very scrawny, starving little puppy which had strayed from the village or nearby huts or something, and got inside. And Baba happened to notice it and looked askance how this thing got in. And the Mandli were about to shoo it off. So Baba said, no, take it somewhere and ask the women to send some food for it. So it was given food. And once it gets a little food, a famished puppy is not going to leave the place. So it stuck on here, and Baba didn't have the heart to send it off. Or probably he had his intention to keep it here. Nothing could be by chance with respect to him. So the puppy was adopted. And there was only one dog at that time, that was Mastan. And yes, Peter was there.
Peter and Mastan.
Yeah. Or probably Peter might have died, I'm not sure. When Peter died, I think Peter might have died by then. So, so this puppy was adopted, and Baba would, Baba's habit was to feed the pets more than they could even contain. So it fattened out very fast, and from a scrawny little thing, it became a very fattened little pup, And it had a peculiar physiognomy, It had a small head, so we couldn't tie it up also. If we put a collar around it, it would slip through his head. Funny type of dog it was. Probably the hunger must have deformed it or what. So it was difficult to tie him up any time. So by the time I had come, it had grown into quite a nice looking dog and well fed. Want me to close it more?
That's good.
So this, and Baba said we'll give the name Rammu to the dog. Rammu. In Gujarati, Rammu means to play. Ramwanu, Rammu, to play. So probably it was for Baba's pleasure or something. So that it was named Rammu. And so it was given to the charge of Meera, and she took charge of it and started to train it and made it learn tricks, So he would be given some piece of toast and he would jump up on obstacles, and Meera taught him some of these tricks. So what would happen is that the routine would be that in the morning he would be tied up to a tree down this row of buildings. At the end there's a neem tree there. At that time it was a little scrawny tree, and Rammu would be tied there. And Baba would be engaged in prayer and other things, so he would be kept tied. And after all that was finished and Baba was relaxing, then it would be released. As soon as they untied him, he would shoot like an arrow through this door and be near Baba. And then Baba would feed him with some toast, or sweet toasts would be called from Pune, and I used to send them, for Baba actually. So Baba would mostly feed him with those expensive toasts.
Baba really pampered his pets.
Oh yeah, much more than the monthly. So then what Baba would be doing is sitting on that chair and he would be putting up his feet on a stool, and then this Rammu dog would be on one side of Baba's feet there, and Baba would hold the sweet toast on one side, and this Rammu would jump over Baba's feet on the other side, and he would get that toast.
So Baba would do this in order to provoke him to jump.
Yeah, so he would hold the toast and show it to him, and he would jump up and then back again here. And Iraj wasn't too happy about this. He said, Baba, what is this? You're spoiling that pet unnecessarily, and it's not good, Baba. Your hip is so badly injured. Supposing this dog doesn't clear the hurdle and falls on your feet, it could hurt your hip joint and cause more trouble. Baba says, nothing of that will happen. Don't worry. This thing is a relaxation for me, because after seclusion work he would relax, So he wanted this relaxation.
Did this new puppy get along with Mustang?
Yeah, in fact, when the puppy was brought and it went inside, so they showed it to Mastan, and this little thing started to bark at Mastan, as is the wont with puppies, Mastan was this huge, hairy, mastiff sort of a dog, from Bhutan. His mother was from Bhutan, and it had extraordinary long hair, and Mastan had the same type of fur, quite long hair, almost 5 or 6 inches long, and very shaggy and bushy. So the pup got frightened and started barking at Mastan, and Mastan just ignored it, So they thought that it will be all right to keep the puppy, and mostly Mastan used to be tied up, he would be rarely let loose. So this fellow had a field day. So this puppy was there, And of course, another source of relaxation for Baba was, as I said, Kakabaria. So he had this severe attack of uremia, and actually it causes a terrible disability for a person. But it seems it was for the best, because he became a source of entertainment to Baba. So despite this great handicap, it proved an advantage, as it were. Because Baba would, for relaxation, ask Kaka to, he would give out a sentence and say, "Kaka, repeat this." And then Kaka would just babble out some incoherent sounds, trying to speak that sentence. He couldn't form a single word, and it would be just some terrible sounds coming out. And it would be so funny that Baba would laugh like anything. And then he would spell out the word T-O-Y, toy. So Kaka is my toy. And he was really like a little doll, quite plump, fat and stout.
And Kaka, was he aware that he was funny?
Yeah, so in fact, after doing all this, he would himself laugh, and I would be standing and he would wink at me. He knew that he couldn't speak it out properly, and that he was a source of entertainment to Baba, and he also was sharing in the enjoyment at his own expense. That was the fun of the whole thing. Remarkable, yeah. So Kaka was a great guy. In the prime of his health, of course, he was of tremendous service to Baba, and towards the fag end of his life, he was still serving the Lord in a different way, as a source of entertainment for him, and genuine entertainment. And he sharing in the mirth. So that was Kaka. He's still finding trouble with the light.
Oh, yeah. Where is it coming from?
How do you find that the image inside is not good enough?
Well, it creates a discrepancy. Where's it coming from? It's right from here.
Should I turn my head like this?
No, I've got to just cancel it. That's it. Okay, now that seems to have run.
All right. Is that all right?
Yeah. Right, there's no more of that.
Yeah. So, despite all this, Kaka would be very meticulous about what the usual routine. He could follow his daily routine, but anything out of that, he had no mind for that. So that made him very funny, He was just going along like an automaton sort of thing, So every morning he would meticulously be ready to accompany the lift chair, and the boys would go over to the women's side. So Kaka must accompany them like the soldier as the bodyguard of Baba. Then when Baba sat in the chair, he would accompany him, strutting alongside. In every other respect, outside he appeared quite normal, but inside it was all finished. He had 7 major heart attacks, mind you. Something of a medical record, and he was still going strong.
He was in good spirits, it sounds like.
Quite good spirits, and fiery as usual. He was up for fight with Baidul whenever he got the chance. As soon as they approached each other, sparks would start flying. So all that was there, but there was no coherence in what he said. His speech was gone. So, yeah, he would be meticulous about this. Even the night watch, as I said earlier, the earlier part of the evening, Baba had given him night work, the duty to watch. So he would be very happy about that he was still continuing to do it. He would be pacing up and down outside Baba's bedroom, waiting for Baba to clap, and very impatiently strutting up and down. And Baba would point out to the women, see how anxious he is for me to call him now. So Baba would have to hurry things to call him in, as it were. Like a little baby. And Baba would also call him Bilbo.
Bilbo?
Yeah, from the Tolkien trilogy fame, The Hobbit.
So Kaka was Bilbo?
Yeah, Kaka was Bilbo. And Baidul was Gollum.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, Kaka would have liked that if he had known did he know the story?
So there was a fight between Gollum and Bilbo.
Yeah.
So, so these were live characters before Baba. So, in fact, Baba said that it had such a similarity in the spiritual line also. The Tolkien's trilogy and the book Hobbit. The first of the series was The Hobbit.
Right.
Yeah, beautiful book.
Oh yeah.
I enjoyed reading it.
Yeah. So, I'm a lifetime lover of.
Yeah. And the one who leads the dwarf, he's like the Gandalf, his name, no?
Yes, the wizard.
The wizard.
Yeah.
So Baba likened him to the master, leading the disciples.
Yeah, he's definitely like Gandalf is.
So, what must have inspired Tolkien to write in this way is remarkable,
Oh yeah, there's nothing like it. Nothing has ever been written like it in English literature.
And how fortunate he was that Baba, it was a source of entertainment for Baba. Yeah. And Mani was reading, so she was an expert in this type of work, and mimicking different sounds and all that. And Baba enjoyed it thoroughly.
I heard that Baba had it read out twice, the whole thing.
Ah, yeah. So he must have really enjoyed it. So Kaka was the Bilbo. And he would walk like that, Yeah. Short and stubby, powerfully built. Till the end he was like that. Yeah. So these were two major sources of entertainment to Baba. Rammu and Bilbo, or Kaka. And this would go on. And of course, side by side, Baba's work of training the Mandali would also go on. So Baba would, at that time, I remember, Aloba was the target of attack for Baba. He was being picked upon and being trained in the final years, as it were.
Even after, 45 years with Baba, or 40 years with Baba?
Yeah, so Baba was constantly picking on Aloba. If he sat here in the hall and just looked towards Baba, Baba would say, why does this Aloba keep staring at me? I feel so uncomfortable. Or something or the other, Baba would say, and poor Aloba wouldn't say anything. We find this sort of thing Baba would do with some of the Mandali in turns, Once it was the turn of Bhav, and he had to face a lot of such treatment from Baba. Yeah. So, one occasion, Baba called Aloba to press his feet there. He was sitting in, Baba was sitting in the chair and Aloba was pressing his feet. And Baba suddenly said, he grimaced with pain. And he says, oh, he's got a cramp in the foot. Baba was saying that he got a cramp in the foot. So poor Aloba was made to feel as if he was responsible for the cramp or something. And then I suddenly piped in, Baba, I got a good liniment cream of Dr. Sloan's, which I use for my cramps. Should I try it on you? He says, bring quickly, I can't bear the pain. So I rushed out and came out, and then I started to massage Baba's foot. So he says, yes, it's feeling nice. But then after a few minutes he said, it's starting to burn. And Baba's skin was very delicate, as I mentioned earlier. So the thing began to cause reaction, and Baba says, what have you done? It's more trouble to me. And it was my turn to grimace, because I thought I was the source of more discomfort to Baba. And so I began to feel very uncomfortable about the thing. And I remember Adi Jr., Baba's brother, had been called at that time. So he was around and he said, Baba, I think best is to wash your feet with soap and water. This burning will go up. So he says, go get quickly. So then he runs and he starts his remedy, and he washes Baba's feet. And then Baba says, now it's all right. So the tension was over.
So 3 people got
yeah.
act.
Yeah. So somehow or the other, Aloba would be the target of that act. Yeah, and now, that time, Baba one day suddenly announced that he was now entering a very strict phase of his seclusion, a very severe phase of seclusion, as it were. And he said that every morning he would have to work closeted in the hall, and the one thing that the Mandali had to do was that during that time we had to, it was our part of the thing was that we should not make the least noise to disturb him. So Baba said that when he did the work, this was the duty that we had to do, to be very still, everybody closeted in their own rooms, doing their little work quietly, so that not the least sound came from us. So that was the condition that we had to carry out. So the next day, Baba then came at the appointed time, earlier than usual. It was, I think, about 7 in the morning, and Baba came into the hall and then sat on the chair. The back door was bolted from inside. Then we were asked to leave him, and Bhav was given the duty to be on watch. So whenever Baba would clap, then it was Bhav's duty to rush inside and attend to Baba. And the door had to be latched from outside. And Baba would work alone, sitting on this chair.
Listen, had he done it before, to have seclusion in this room?
I'm not aware of that. This was the first time that this happened during my stay there. So it's quite vivid in my memory. Perhaps he might have done it before, but I'm not aware of it. So the first day we are now all quiet in our rooms. I was with Erich in his cabin there. I was staying with him. Pendu was in the room which I occupy now. And after a few minutes, I hear a loud thud. And it seems that Pendu dropped a big pot of water that he had stored in the room to quietly do some washing or something so that he wouldn't disturb Baba. And in trying to handle it, it just slipped from his hand, I don't know how. And because it was so quiet, there was not a soul stirring around, as it were. And pin drop silence, and we hear this big thud, and we were all petrified. The first day, and it's barely an hour gone by, and this big disturbance. There was a big splash of water after the thud. But of course, nothing happened at that time at least. And then Baba's seclusion continued. Baba would keep clapping off and on, and we could hear Bhau's hasty footsteps rushing to Baba's hall. Bhau would stay in the room there, adjoining the hall. Yeah. And so he would rush to Baba and attend upon him, whatever he needed. And then after about a couple of hours, he would clap, and it would be the sign. Bhau would be called in, and he would say that now it's all over. So then Bhau would come and ask us all to come into the hall. So then
this would be through the morning hours from...
Yeah, say from 7 to 9 or something. Yeah, couple of hours. And so we all get into the hall, and then it would be the prayer session, and the doors would again be locked from inside, and Baba would be then assisted. When we came in, we would see Baba after the seclusion. He would appear very tired and seemed very exhausted with the work, whatever work he was doing. And we could see the outer physical repercussions of the tremendous work that he must be doing, because he would feel very limp and there would be a very tired look on his face. And then he would want the prayers to be done. So then Bhau and Francis, I think, would again support him on either side, and Erich would recite the two prayers, the Parvadigar and the repentance prayers. And then of course the stool would be placed before Baba, and we had to troop one by one and put our foot on the stool, and Baba would bow down on our foot, and we had to repeat loudly the name of the God in our religion, in each one's religion, as I said previously, I think. So this would be done, and then that would be the end of the whole thing. Then Baba would want to wash his hands and face and all that, and then relax on his chair. And then time for Ramu and relaxation for Baba. Yeah. And of course he would come early in the morning, so he wouldn't have his breakfast also. So the breakfast would be sent here by Mera, and Baba would have his tea and little toast, and Ramu would have the major share of the toast to the great chagrin of Erich. And the more annoyed Erich felt, the more Baba would do it. That was his want, He was a big tease, Baba, yeah. Until you gave up everything. So he would carry on with this. And then of course the usual routine of some correspondence and whatever he wanted to be read out. But when this phase started, he said that he would now not attend to any correspondence, except when he asked for any particular person's news or something, only then it would be read out. So there was great restraint put on correspondence, and only telegrams or very urgent messages would be given out to Baba. Yeah.
Had this happened before that you recall in previous years, that Baba stopped attending to correspondence but for the most urgent?
The year before also, but not this strict. It was getting more and more strict now. So the more and more restriction on correspondence, and Baba just didn't want any external contact now.
Did Baba look like he seemed to be physically suffering as he had been when he had the neck difficulties and the tremendous problem?
Well, not that type of physical suffering, but he looked more tired and more exhausted.
From the seclusion?
Yeah, from the seclusion work. As if all energy would be drained from him and he would require to rest. And there would be the couch, then he would rest there, I would massage his body. Yeah. So
that was continuing?
Yeah, that used to continue. Otherwise, sometimes I would sit and press his feet here to give him some relief. And then, of course, that day, the first day, after everything was over, then Baba asked, what was this noise that I heard? That's in the seclusion. Could you all people not obey my one little simple instruction? And he looked very pained about it. So then Pendu said, yes, Baba, I tried to be very over careful and it just slipped from my hand. And I feel very sorry about it. And he was asking forgiveness of Baba. And Baba says, no, it's not your fault. It's Maya. You see, it's trying to create some disturbance in my work. So on the opening day, Maya is putting in her little effort to cause obstruction to my work. And then Baba explained to us, he said, look, at that time, some bombing practice was being done. There's a bombing site about a few kilometers to the west of Merazad.
Yeah, between here and Ahmednagar.
Yeah, there's a big bombing field, and these bombers would come from the Pune airport, the military airport there, and do this bombing practice. So big bombs would explode very nearby, and the whole of this building would shake, and there would be vibration and a loud bang. So Baba said this did not disturb him, but the slightest noise that would come from my close ones around you is a source of infinite disturbance to me. So you can imagine what responsibility it is for you people not to cause disturbance in my work. Yeah. So outside noises is nothing. So don't worry about that, but you people be very careful. Yeah. So probably he wanted us to just concentrate on him while he was doing this, so that we didn't make the slightest disturbance. Yeah, it was one of the ways.
Would you have to be careful about clearing your throat or coughing?
Yeah. No sound must come from us. So no sneezing, nothing. We have to suppress whatever we could. Yeah. And avoid any sort of movement.
So you just sit in one place?
Yeah, better not to move about. You could stumble or anything, tread upon something. So this kept on going day after day, and what I noticed was that Baba was advancing his time of work. So each day he would be coming a little earlier. So I remember even now that it would be quite dark when he would be here. So as early as 6 in the morning or 6:30, it would be quite dark because it was the winter season. So Baba would be already in his chair and it would be all silent here, all around, everything hushed up, And until Baba finished his work, no sound anywhere. But on the second day or third day also, somebody, I think, walked past the room, and again Baba then mentioned it. And he looked up at me and he says, "What the heck are you doing while I am in seclusion? Can't you see that there is no disturbance here? Can you not do this work?" He hadn't told me anything about this. So I said, "Yes, Baba, I'll keep watch." So that was the time I got to keep watch for Baba while he was in seclusion. So from the next day onwards, I would sit on the veranda there, where Francis's room is, and just keep watching the door and the surrounding space, so that if anybody tried to approach this open space out there, I would frantically wave them off, So one day I remember Mani came along to have a talk with Adi Jr., her brother, and I started to wave her off, Oh, Baba doesn't want disturbance. And so she started to tiptoe her way back, withdrawing her footsteps, and I was worried that if she treaded upon a leaf or a twig, I've had it. The whole day would be spoiled for me, for not keeping proper watch. So it would be so tense.
So somehow Mani hadn't realized that Baba was in seclusion then?
No, she had realized, but she didn't know that I was keeping watch and warding off people here.
Oh, I see. That was a new thing.
Yeah. So nobody was to walk here. I don't know if she ever remembers what had happened. Now this is how many years ago. But it's still so clear in my mind, I can visualize that. I was frantic. Go away, go off. For the life of me.
So did you get away with that?
Yeah, and fortunately no disturbance occurred. And I heaved a sigh of relief. So this was how intense his seclusion would be. And of course when we went in, we would see Baba very exhausted. And this continued throughout the year, I think, later on. So, but while I was at Meherazad, this was the daily routine. So in the morning, Baba would do this. And during that time, Baba was also formulating plans that after the seclusion work would be over, that the darshan program would have to be held, because all over the world there was now tremendous impatience, as it were, to have Baba's darshan. Baba was putting it off year after year, especially the Westerners hadn't had his darshan since the East-West gathering, except for a few stragglers, as it were, who had the good fortune to have his darshan otherwise. So there was great expectancy. So Baba had given out quietly that let us now start formulating plans. So for that, the great darshan that was to follow after seclusion. So these plans were being formulated, and Baba gave out that he would like to give darshan from 2 in the afternoon to 5 o'clock. But in the months of April, May and June. Now these are summer months in Pune, and he said Guru Prasad should be the venue and the central hall in Guru Prasad.
Was this for the following year that he was planning?
Yeah, for the following year. So Baba said that he gave out, actually a circular was being drafted, and he said that I do not want to give any public darshan. It should be darshan only for my lovers, and only after I break my silence will there be darshan for the world at large. So this darshan will be restricted only to my lovers. And then dates were being set for different contiguous groups, like Andhra, certain districts, and then Hamirpur and Gujarat and other states for the Easterners. And for the Westerners also, Baba would want them to come in groups so that all wouldn't come together. He wanted a sort of restriction on numbers because the hall couldn't accommodate more than a few hundred people at a time.
So he didn't want an outdoor thing under a pandal?
No.
Time.
Just a small gathering at a time. And so the Westerners would be given, I think, 4 days, and there was a circular giving out all the details later. So these plans were being formulated, and Francis also was working on it, Erich was working, I was assisting them, and back and forth, and that would be read out to Baba. So Baba, then Erich suggested that Baba giving darshan in the afternoon to Westerners and Easterners together would be too much, and why not have Westerners in the morning as we did in the East-West gathering. So Baba made a wry face and said, no, in the mornings I feel drowsy, do not feel up to the mark. I said, but Baba, in the afternoon, just imagine how could you be giving darshan to so many together. He was sort of flared up, So Baba says, all right, let there be darshan in the mornings also, and for the Westerners. So it was all quite heated discussions would go on, And Baba was quite serious about the whole thing. Yeah. When we little knew that although he did give darshan, but not in the sense that we understood. So these plans were being done, and these plans continued even after I left Meherazad, and eventually it was all finalized. And later in the year, I think it was in October, and I remember it was Erich's birthday, that workers' meeting was called later in the year. So some from Pune, Bombay, and Ahmednagar, the workers who would help in darshan program, they were called for a meeting here, and Baba gave out this plan for the great darshan. So
some few got to see Baba through that meeting then.
Yeah, so that was the time that some of the Pune lovers could again see Baba. And Baba was so strict, the seclusion hadn't ended. Although seclusion work had ended, his seclusion was still there, going on. So Baba, I remember he said when we entered that nobody should step on the carpet spread before him. That they should skirt the carpet and then sit in the hall here. That nobody should tread on the carpet, leave alone touch him. So that was how strict he was then. And then when we assembled here, then he gave out the circular, and then suggestions were called for, and some discussions took place, which I don't recollect what exactly happened. But it was all nicely conducted. And at the end, I remember it was Meherji's birthday. 13th October was a common birthday for Eraj, Meherji and his wife Humai.
Oh.
Yeah, they were all born on 13th October. So as a special case, Baba called Meherji to come and kiss his hand. So he was the only one allowed to approach him. And yeah.
Who all came to that meeting apart from the usual Mirazadians? Meherji and
the Pune Center workers were there, Ramakrishna and Kamble, Doifode, all these workers were there from Bombay, Sorabji Siganpuria, and of course Gajwani, Kishanchand Gajwani. The remarkable thing was that I think Kishanchand Gajwani came for that meeting. He was there, and after meeting him, he went back home, and in 3 days' time he died. Yeah, it was his last meeting with Baba.
No indications.
No, he was hale and hearty. He was, of course, quite aged, but he led such a straightforward and pure life that he was quite fresh looking. Even though he was so old, his skin was so nice and healthy. He looked so healthy. He was a picture of health. Yeah. And Baba once asked him, do you sleep at night? So he says, yes, Baba, I have no trouble falling asleep. But I sleep only 3 hours. So Baba looked askance, how come? So he says, Baba, I meditate upon you up to 12 midnight. And then I fall asleep. And at 3 o'clock I wake up. And then again I start meditating on you. And then after that he would attend to his business. He had a big flourishing business, some 2 or 3 big factories to attend to. Yeah, so he was a very wealthy businessman and would help financially also in Baba's work. He was the one who helped set up the Bombay Center. He and Sorabji Siganpuria were the 2 stalwarts